Right, so we're diving into this whole Sean Diddy Combs situation.
Yeah, you've sent a ton of stuff. Articles, court documents. Looks like you want to get the whole picture. Huh.
Definitely. It's a
Okay.
complex case, and I really want to try to understand what's going on.
It is, yeah. There's a lot going on. Allegations, legal stuff, rumors. It can be hard to keep it all straight.
Right. And that's what we're here for, I guess.
Oh,
Try and break it down. Separate fact from fiction.
absolutely. And, maybe even try to figure out what could happen next.
Yeah, exactly. So ready to jump in?
Let's do it. Why don't we start with the legal timeline? The beginning, I guess, November 2023, with Cassie Ventura filing that lawsuit against Combs.
Right. And these weren't just small disagreements. Ventura was making some pretty serious accusations.
Yeah, physical abuse, coercion, even sexual exploitation. Pretty heavy stuff.
Definitely paints a picture of, well, a pretty unhealthy relationship. One where power dynamics were out of whack.
And, it's important to note that the case was settled out of court quickly.
Right. But the fact that it was settled at all, that says something.
Yeah, definitely raised some eyebrows. Then, just a few months later, February 2024, Rodney Lil Rod Jones filed his own suit.
Making similar claims. Drugging, coercion, it's tough to hear.
And what's really interesting about Jones's lawsuit is that it's kind of shifted things. It wasn't just focusing on individual incidents anymore. It started to point toward a pattern of behavior.
Right, like this could be bigger than just isolated incidents. It almost felt like Combs' attorneys were trying to, control the story from the get-go.
Absolutely. They came out swinging, denials, calling everything baseless and fiction, a real battle over the narrative.
And then, of course, things really blew up in March 2024 with those federal raids on Combs' properties.
Those raids were massive. News everywhere. They seized computers, phones, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, a ton of potential evidence. But the thing that everyone was talking about was the baby oil. Over 1,000 bottles.
Yeah, talk about a strange detail. It really added fuel to the fire, especially with all the speculation about those freak-off parties Combs was rumored to throw.
The parties where there were supposedly, drugs and pressure to engage in sexual activities, it all felt very unsettling.
Yeah, it did. And then things got even worse in April 2024. More lawsuits came out. And this time, the allegations were even more disturbing.
Some incredibly serious accusations. Someone even claimed that Combs had drugged and molested a minor at an audition. It just kept getting more and more intense.
Absolutely. It felt like a turning point. The public scrutiny on Combs and his behavior just exploded. People were starting to ask some serious questions about how widespread this alleged abuse might be.
And all this leads us to September 2024, the federal indictment and arrest.
That was huge. Combs got hit with some serious charges, racketeering and sex trafficking by coercion, not something you can just brush off.
The prosecution's argument was pretty powerful, too. It wasn't just about isolated incidents anymore. They were claiming that Combs was using his power and resources to create an environment of exploitation.
Right. And the judge even denied him bail, because of the risk of flight and potential witness tampering.
Definitely shows how serious the courts were taking these charges.
Mm.
And then even after all that, in October 2024, even more people came forward.
It was like a dam had broken. Men and women alleging abuse, misconduct, even molestation. Some of these accusations went back decades.
Just wave after wave of new accusers. Really shifted the public's perception of the case, don't you think?
Definitely. Made you wonder, how could this go on for so long? And what else might be out there,
It's a lot to process, for sure. And with the trial set for May 2025, this is far from over.
Oh, this is just the beginning. The trial will be huge, could have massive repercussions for Combs and, honestly, for the whole music industry.
So we've got the allegations, the legal timeline. But before we dive into the legal strategies and all that, what about the rumors? We have to talk about that.
Yeah, you're right. High-profile cases like this always attract speculation, wild stories, and this one's no exception.
Exactly. So let's try to separate truth from, fiction, I guess, starting with the Tupac Shakur thing.
The conspiracy theory that never dies. Did Combs have something to do with Tupac's murder back in '96? Did he pay for it? That's the rumor.
And it's not just random internet chatter. You've got Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, an associate of Tupac's killer, giving conflicting statements over the years.
First, he claims Combs offered him money to kill Tupac. Then he takes it back. It's confusing.
Even without solid evidence, the fact that someone so close to the murder made those claims, even if they were retracted, it keeps the theory alive. It's crazy how these rumors spread.
People want answers, right? Especially when it involves people we think we know. A good story, even if it's not true, can be more appealing than not knowing.
And then there were those rumors about Jay-Z and Beyonce being worried about, their connection to Combs.
Thankfully, those rumors were debunked pretty quickly. Fact checkers shut them down, and their legal team called them out as completely false.
Seems like some people just want to drag everyone into the mess. There were even rumors involving Will Smith's family, for goodness sake.
Guilt by association, pure and simple. It's important to be really cautious about those sorts of claims, especially without evidence.
And let's not forget about that ridiculous story about leaked CNN footage showing Combs doing all sorts of crazy stuff in some underground play tunnels.
That one was wild. A total fabrication, just a hoax that went viral. It's amazing how quickly these things can spread online.
It's a good reminder that we can't believe everything we see, especially on social media. We got to be critical, look for evidence, check the sources.
Absolutely. It's easy to get swept up in the drama, but it's important to remember this is about real people's lives.
Exactly. So let's move away from the speculation and focus on the legal battle ahead. What kind of strategies do you think we might see from each side?
Well, for the defense, it seems likely they'll try to frame this as a case of consensual relationships.
Trying to make it seem like the accusers are just after money or attention. Yeah. Classic strategy, right?
Yeah, they'll try to discredit the accusers, maybe highlight inconsistencies in their stories, or try to paint them as opportunistic, downplay the severity of the allegations.
But what about those racketeering charges? How do you defend against accusations of a more organized operation?
They might argue that Combs gatherings were just social events, typical for the music industry. Nothing sinister, no intent to exploit anyone.
I guess they could also try to spin the digital evidence in their favor, show messages that suggest friendly relationships between Combs and the accusers.
Exactly. Try to create doubt, make it seem like maybe things weren't as they've been portrayed. It's going to be a tough fight for them, though.
What about the prosecution? What strategies might they use?
They're going to want to emphasize those patterns of coercion. Paint a picture of a system of abuse enabled by Combs' power and influence.
That means witness testimony will be crucial. They'll need people to come forward and describe what really went on at those gatherings.
Absolutely. And they'll need to really drive home the power imbalance between Combs and the accusers. How hard it would be to say no to someone with his status.
And I guess they'll need to show evidence of a structured operation to support those racketeering claims.
Right. Proof that these weren't just random events. Organized transportation, invitations, that kind of thing. They'll also have to address the delayed reporting, why some accusers are coming forward now after so long.
They might use expert testimony to explain how victims of abuse often delay reporting. Fear, shame, a sense of dependence on their abuser.
Exactly. It'll be important to counter the defense's attempts to discredit the accusers. Maybe highlight the ones who aren't seeking financial gain.
And maybe call witnesses who can speak to Combs' private behavior, challenge that carefully crafted public image.
Right. Show a different side of him, one that contradicts the innocent until proven guilty narrative.
It sounds like this trial is going to be a real battle of narratives, each side fighting to control the story, to influence the jury's perception.
Exactly. And that's what makes this case so fascinating. It's not just a legal battle. It's a battle of stories about power, fame, and ultimately accountability.
And we've only just scratched the surface here. There's so much more to unpack.
We've covered a lot, but there's still a lot to discuss. The potential outcomes, what happens next. This story's far from over.
Definitely a lot to think about. But for now, let's take a moment to let everything sink in. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back and ready to keep going with this Diddy deep dive.
Definitely. I think we left off talking about the trial, right? And all the possibilities.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to know how it's going to play out. I mean, a jury could find him guilty on everything.
Right. Or guilty on some charges and not others. Or maybe not guilty on anything.
And there's always plea deals, right? That could change things up.
Oh, yeah, for sure. A plea deal can really throw a wrench in things.
So let's say worst case scenario for Combs, guilty on all the charges. What kind of penalties are we looking at?
If he's found guilty of both racketeering and sex trafficking by coercion, I mean, it's serious time. Potentially decades in prison, plus huge fines.
Wow, that would be a huge fall from grace for someone like him.
Yeah, it would change his image forever.
Yeah.
I mean, a conviction like that would completely tarnish his legacy. Everything he's built could crumble.
But what if he's found not guilty or gets a plea deal before the trial even starts? What happens then?
Well, an acquittal, legally speaking, would be a win for him, but it wouldn't erase everything that's happened.
Yeah, the court of public opinion is a whole other thing.
Exactly. People might still have doubts, even if a jury finds him not guilty, And then there's the plea deal option.
where he admits guilt to lesser charges in exchange for a lighter sentence.
Right. He might avoid the worst of it, but he'd still have to admit he did something wrong.
So no matter what, it's hard to see him coming out of this unscathed.
Yeah. His reputation, his career, they've taken a hit for sure. And this whole case has really put a spotlight on some big issues in the music industry.
Abuse, exploitation, it's all out in the open now.
And it's a conversation we need to have about power, about consent, about how easy it is for these things to happen when you've got these huge power imbalances.
It's a reminder that no one is above the law, no matter how famous or powerful they are.
Absolutely. And it's about supporting the people who come forward, the accusers, no matter who the accused is.
So what's next in all this? What should we be watching for as we get closer to the trial?
Well, the grand jury's still going, right? Which means they could uncover new evidence, maybe find more witnesses.
And the trial itself is still months away. Plenty of time for things to change, new information to come out, maybe even more surprises.
This is a story that's still unfolding. There are a lot of chapters left to write.
You know, something that's really stood out to me is this whole battle of narratives that's going on, both sides trying to control the story.
Oh, yeah. It's like a PR war playing out in the media and online. Everyone wants to shape how the public sees this case.
And that brings us to social media. It's playing such a huge role in all this.
It's a double-edged sword, isn't it? On one hand, it gives survivors a platform to share their stories and hold abusers accountable.
But then there's the misinformation, the rumors. It can be hard to know what to believe.
We have to be careful what we read and share online. Do our own research. Look for credible sources. Don't just take everything at face value.
Exactly. We need to be critical thinkers, especially with something as sensitive as this.
This deep dive has been a lot to take in, but it's important to stay curious, stay informed, and stay critical.
Well said. And no matter what happens with the trial, the conversation about power and consent and accountability, that needs to keep going.
We can't let this fade away. We have to learn from it and work to make things better.
This might be about Sean Diddy Combs, but it's also about so much more. It's a chance to look at the bigger picture, the systems that allow these things to happen.
A chance to make real change, and that's what matters.
This deep dive might be coming to an end, but the story, it's definitely not over.
Yeah.
We'll keep following it and we'll keep you updated. So wow, we really went deep on this one, huh? Serious accusations, the whole legal timeline, those crazy rumors, even the strategies each side might use.
A lot to unpack, yeah. And it makes you think, doesn't it? About power, about the entertainment industry, about how we deal with accusations like these.
No doubt. It's bigger than just a celebrity scandal.
Yeah.
This case really reflects some serious issues, issues we all need to be talking about.
Absolutely. As this case goes forward, we got to keep that bigger picture in mind. What stands out to you from everything we talked about? What really sticks with you?
I think for me, it's the number of accusers and how some of these accusations go back decades. Makes you wonder how long this has been going on and, how many other stories haven't been told.
It's powerful, yeah. Makes you realize how important it is to believe survivors, to create a space where they feel safe coming forward no matter what.
It's not enough to focus on individual cases. We have to look at the systems that allow this to happen. The power imbalances, the silence, the lack of accountability.
You're right. We can't just treat the symptoms. We got to address the root causes. In this case, it's like a microcosm of those bigger problems, a chance for us to really see them, and demand better.
As we get closer to that trial date in May 2025, it'll be interesting to see what happens, how each side presents their case, what evidence comes out.
It'll be a battle, for sure. High stakes. But we can't forget the human element, the accusers, the witnesses, everyone whose life has been touched by this.
Exactly. It's not just a legal drama. It's about real people and real pain. And no matter what the verdict is, this conversation needs to continue. Power, consent, accountability.
You got it. This deep dive might be wrapping up, but the story, it's far from over.
So here's something to think about as we wait for the next chapter. What does justice even look like in a case like this? It's complicated, right? So many layers.
It's a question we all need to be asking, as individuals and as a society. No easy answers.
This has been quite a journey, a deep dive into a story that's still being written. Stay informed, stay engaged, and keep those critical thinking skills sharp.
And remember, even with tough topics like this, there's always room for hope. Hope for change, for a better future.
Well said. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive, everyone. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep asking those tough questions.